When different factors converge, it can bring a myriad of consequences. For example, in an internet age where anyone can interact with anyone else, how does a narcissistic deviant get the attention he craves when there are no limits to the lengths he will go to get it? To cross into mainstream fame or notoriety, there needs to be a big splash. But everyone knows that big splashes create ripple effects that have far-reaching consequences. Not since Zodiac has there been a game of cat and mouse with a killer on this kind of scale. This is Murder of Crows.
Say that you're ready, but you won't like it. You say that you're ready, but you won't like it. Silence all the crows, lining up in little rows. A sudden chill surrounds me. Silence all the crows, see come out and say you're wrong. A sudden chill.
Now, I appreciate that fame can be intoxicating, but the allure of fame, the need to be seen and put on a pedestal, can become a driving force for a lot of people. I remember a quote from a musician some years ago that, far from being a throwaway, jokey comment, made me realise how desperate the need to become a celebrity can be. Ricky Wilson, lead singer of British pop rock band Kaiser Chiefs, and one-time judge on the UK version of The Voice, once stated that he would wank a tramp for fame. For viewers perhaps a little unfamiliar with our British vernacular, I'll break this down. To wank is to masturbate, spank the monkey, bash the bishop, crack one off the wrist, five-knuckle shuffle, stroke the Wookie, jerk the gherkin, or otherwise bash one out. A tramp is a vagrant, a hobo, a down and out, a bum, a vagabond, an itinerant, a pariah, or mendicant of the desperate variety. So basically, he's saying that he would give a stranger of questionable hygiene and STD status a very intimate and personal service just to be a step closer to the celebrity he craved. I understood in that moment what a powerful force it could be. Fortunately for him, Ricky had talent. He was a member of a good band and was already on the right path when he made his comment to NME. Fame can be all-consuming when one doesn't have it but craves it with every fibre of one's being. So now I need to introduce our focus for the day, as specially requested by my daughter. So this is for you, Neve Elizabeth. Now let's meet one Luka Rocco Magnotta. Anyone who's watched the exceptional Netflix series Don't Fuck With Cats will be familiar with his name and presumably his later actions, as he is chased down by a group of amateur internet sleuths who are aware of escalations in his behaviour. But the series is told from their point of view. So we only really meet Luka when he is well progressed in his search for fame or infamy. Before I look at the later events that gave him the attention he so desperately wanted, I want to look back to see if there were roots to his behaviour. He was born on the 24th of July 1982 in Scarborough, Ontario, with the decidedly more ordinary name Eric Clinton Kirk Newman, to Anna Yorkin and Donald Newman, and the couple went on to have 2 more children. It seems his early life was marked with relationship splits, with his parents splitting while he is still a nipper. Then after moving in with his grandparents, his grandmother Phyllis divorces his grandfather. But there is also a message sent to young Eric as he is homeschooled for a time, which he was told was because the world is a dirty and dangerous place. Whether narcissism was a byproduct of feeling that you can't rely on anybody else and the only rewards are those you get for yourself is unclear. But these would have been strong messages in the developing psyche of young Eric, as when he did attend I.E. Weldon secondary school in the Kawartha Lakes area of Ontario between 1998 and 2000, he was remembered as a vain person, obsessed with his own looks, hello cat, and changed his hair often, presumably in an effort to stand out. It was clear that he was desperate to be looked at and admired. By 2002, he had taken this desire to be admired a step further, and he had started stripping at a club called Remington's in Toronto. This must have fed a need in him, as a year later he extended this to appearing in 2 gay porn films using the name Jimmy, perhaps an early indication that he wasn't happy with his given name. In 2004, we get a glimpse of a side of Newman that had only been hinted at up until this point. He befriended a 21-year-old girl who had a mental age of 12, and immediately begins to use and take advantage of her. He gets her to take out a credit card, which he uses with wanton disregard to any consequences for the girl, in racking up a $10,000 debt. When the police get involved and arrest him for fraud, he is also looked at for sexually assaulting the girl and videotaping it, though this latter charge is later dropped. But still, in my opinion, there's no smoke without fire, and the police must have had good reason to look at him for the sexual assault in the first place. In the case that followed, Newman pled guilty to 4 counts of fraud. But notably at this time, a psychiatric report was produced to the court that indicated that Newman had significant psychiatric issues, which appeared to have been a diagnosis of schizophrenia. So Newman's issues were clearly more than skin deep, and it was advised at this time that he be medicated. So the problems were evidently thought to be on the level of brain chemistry, at least in part. In the outcome of this case, he was given a 9-month community service and an order for 12 months of probation. And in summing up, Madam Justice Lauren Marshall gave a stern warning that on reflection would become something of an understatement, with her saying, "You have a medical problem and need to always take medication. If you do not, your life is going to get messed up." So following the case, his life continues on the path of gay porn, and he pops up still as his alter ego of Jimmy in Toronto's gay magazine called Fab. In a brief pen pick, he says he is originally from Russia, loves soccer, and wants to be a police officer. Now, there are a number of ways that you can take these comments, knowing what we now know about Newman. You could argue that he is integrating Jimmy into a rich internal fantasy life that he's created for this character. Or conversely, you could think that he is thinking of ways to show himself in the most desirable way, or maybe even a combination of those two things. Either way, it leaves me questioning his ongoing mental health, especially in view of his earlier schizophrenia diagnosis. 2006 brought Newman his first short but significant romantic relationship with a transgender woman called Barbie. Born a man, but she had been living as a woman since the age of 16. They were together for about 4 months and lived together at Newman's flat for the final 2 weeks of that time. After the later events, Barbie, looking back, gave an insight into Newman at this time, saying that he always wanted his picture taken. And additionally, perhaps because he had been a male escort for a time, it may have changed his attitude towards sex. But he seemed to favour intimacy above sexual gratification with Barbie. And she later told the Daily Mail, I think because he was working as an escort, he found it difficult to be intimate. We fooled around that first night, but after we got serious, he never wanted to have sex or kiss me on my lips. All he wanted to do was hold my hand. So his sense of grandeur and self-image were the most important thing to him at this time. And it was after the breakup with Barbie that Eric Newman legally changed his name to Luka Rocco Magnotta. It was clearly a name that conveyed a sense of glamour to him, and was perhaps him putting an official name on his Jimmy alter ego. It allowed him to start with a clean slate and create his own persona, and that's what he was driven to do. And he was driven to do that at any cost. By 2007, the new man, Luka Magnotta, is trying to establish himself as a model, or at the very least be in situations where people will look at him. And he is trying out for various reality shows, including Cover Guy, where his vanity and narcissism are on full display. He also tries out for Plastic Makes Perfect, which predictably was about cosmetic surgery. And this is where Magnotta indicates his efforts to achieve, in his mind at least, physical perfection. And here he states that he had a couple of hair transplants, had his nose done, and was hoping to get implants in his pecs and arm muscles.
How are you? My name's Luka, and I don't live on the second floor.
Okay, so that's obscure. Janice.
No, Susan Vega.
My name is Luka. I live on the second floor. You know, I live on the 10th floor.
Even though it's obviously self-obvious, but would you mention something about bisexuality in your intro to her?
You mentioned something about
Yeah,
bisexuality.
my name is Luka. I'm checking
I'm a
out my
bisexual.
bisexuality. Or
I'm a bisexual.
Wait.
Okay.
Clear the air here.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Let's just relax it up a bit. Is it still on now, or?
Yep.
It's always
Oh,
on,
do I
yeah.
just keep going?
But
or-
don't worry about it. Like, don't even think
Okay.
about these guys. Yeah.
Okay, my name's Luka, and I'm a bisexual, and I like to sleep with both men and women, obviously, and I feel comfortable completely with both. And it's like 50-50 for me. Actually, it's a bit more. It's like 60% men and 40%. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Luka.
You're very welcome.
These are really good comments. Yep.
Well, I tend to have a lot of male partners, and a lot of people assume that I'm gay because I have a lot of male partners. And when I tell them, I see women as well. I see a lot of women partners, and they don't believe me. They say, well, usually we just see you with a lot of guys, so you're automatically just gay. They don't believe that. They think I'm just doing it as an act. Because I'm struggling with myself, but I know like in myself like what I am, and I know that I'm bisexual, and I'm not. It's just not. People think you're just saying it, but I'm not. First, I was scared to be with men. I was always going with women just because of the society. Then I said, you know what, I'm gonna do whatever is right for me. And then I decided to go with what my feelings were. So I decided to go with men, and I liked it. So. It was flowing back and forth. Well, in the beginning, obviously I was a teenager, and I was very shy, and I was very confused. I didn't know what to think, and there was nobody around for me to talk to. So then I said, I was thinking in my head, you know what? Is everybody else feeling this way, or is it just me? Am I feeling this way? You see, I didn't know. So I needed to know that, and there was no place to go. But then as I got older, I said, I started experiencing with going to the gay community, the bisexual community, and I felt more comfortable because I knew that there was other people like myself. I've had my own personal experience in the past where I've provided companion professionally to. Hi, my name is Luka. Magnotta is my last name, Magnotta.
Hi Luka, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Cover good. So
Thank
right
you.
away, this is underwear competition. I'm gonna ask you to this row to cut the shirt right away.
All right, definitely.
John, how come when his voice is lower, yours is lower?
I know you have a very
I have a very deep voice. A lot of people tell me that actually.
very good speaking voice.
So how do you
Be
get
on
your
the-
voice so deep?
How do I get my voice so deep? Practice makes perfect, right?
You got kind of a Ryan Philippe vibe going on.
A lot of people tell me that, like they remind me of like 54, that movie,
Yeah, he
So-
happens to be one of my favorites too.
Oh, really?
I think you look good. I think that your body is a little bit slim.
I used to be really overweight, to be honest. I used to be really overweight. I lost like weight.
Really, how did you do that?
I just like got up every morning at like 4 o'clock and like ran constantly. And people would tell me, oh, stop running. And I just kept doing it basically.
What's your idea of overweight?
Oh God, I was a lot of overweight actually.
Oh, really?
So like,
I'm curious about your hair color. What does that happen?
no, actually I just got to highlight it, change things up a bit, yeah.
All right, a little bit greeny. I know that when you go swimming a lot, I notice some blondes tend to go in the chlorinated water, a little bit on the greeny yellow side.
Yeah, that's
Should
what
be
happened to me.
careful with that.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
look a little bit healthier.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it looks a little bit dried out.
That happens sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I think he looks good. I think he has a chance. I'm going to give him a yes.
Thank you.
I think this competition, you got to be a little bit built up, I think.
I have no problem gaining weight. Like I can gain weight if I need to gain weight.
I'm actually thinking more muscle definition. I think you do have a very nice lean.
That could happen really quickly. I can gain weight really quickly.
I'm gonna say potentially. I think you do have potential, but I'm gonna ask you to come back next year at this competition.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So
Looks like-
And your age.
Okay.
So go ahead.
All right. My name is Luka Magnotta, and I'm 25.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a model.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the other stuff that you do?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
great.
all totally fine.
Super.
Basically, I do a lot of adult modeling, and I do adult films as well. And I'm pretty comfortable in front of the camera, so I'm doing it for a while, and it's been working out pretty good for me. So.
And you do it full time.
I do. It's full time, whether it's doing the films or doing magazines or internet shows, what have you. It's all very consistent, so it's been really good for me.
That's great. How long have you been doing it?
On and off for about 2 years now. You know, I travel, and then I come back to Toronto and do it. I go to Montreal and do it. Go to LA. So whenever, right?
Yeah, where the paychecks come from.
Definitely.
So what is the surgery you're thinking about having done, or the procedure?
Well, it's going to be at the back of my head. I've had 2 done already.
Can you tell me what it is you're having done?
It's a hair transplant. And basically, do you want me to just go on a bit about...
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the procedure, yeah.
Okay, so...
Unabashed by the rejections from these shows, it seems Magnotta's desire to become known by the public at large was growing, leading him to launch a self-made rumour to generate greater interest in him. Magnotta was searching for shortcuts on his quest for a public persona, and he figured that the way to achieve this more quickly was by riding the coattails of someone who was already well known. In Magnotta's book, any attention was good attention. So he didn't care why someone was famous, just that they were famous. In Canada at this time, there was one couple that had dominated the media in the way that Magnotta seemingly coveted. The so-called Ken and Barbie killers, Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. In fact, Homolka was thought of as Canada's most hated woman at this time. So to sow the seeds of some kind of association, Magnotta seemingly used a series of false accounts on various social media and internet platforms to generate and propagate the story that he, Magnotta, was romantically linked to Homolka. And in order to feed the fire of interest at a higher level, he started appearing on radio and in news articles, then refuting the link with the infamous killer.
My modeling career is kind of going downhill, basically, these days, to be honest with you. And
it's all because of this whole rumor of you dating Karla Homolka. This is the thing that's...
The rumors destroyed my life, basically, and I've been receiving death threats. My address is posted, that's why I had to move. I want my Pomeranian back. It was taken out of my SUV. I'm about to have a nervous breakdown here. My reputation is completely ruined. I just want everybody to set the record straight that me and her have absolutely no connection. I go in to see casting directors. I go in to see agents. You know, they know who I am. You know, it's all over everywhere. Started being a stripper, and then basically I went from there to doing adult films, and I'm not ashamed of doing the adult films. I have a problem though with people saying those to relatives, and now nobody wants to talk to me. I don't have anybody, basically. Whoever's doing this, you know, please stop. You know, you're doing a lot of harm.
It seems he was an embodiment of the Oscar Wilde quote, "The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about." He didn't care what people were saying. The only thing that mattered was that the things that were being said were about him. For the next couple of years, he generates a multitude of fake accounts that both fueled rumours about him and others that poured adulation onto him, suggesting a community of people who worshipped the ground he walked on. He was creating a corner of the internet where everything was about him. And while this may have fed his ego in increments, he was still not achieving the elevated levels of recognition that seemed to be his sole life purpose. His next step towards achieving notoriety at any cost would start to put him on the map for every kind of wrong reason. But don't forget, the costs, the consequences, these were unimportant to Magnotta. For him, the end justified the means. And for him, the next step was one guy, two kittens. In the now infamous video, Magnotta, careful not to appear clearly on camera, takes two kittens, puts them in a vacuum sealing bag, then proceeds to suck the air out of the bag, suffocating the poor defenseless animals. Magnotta knew that as well as sparking widespread outrage, he knew the best way to make people keep talking about him was to create a mystery that people would want to solve. While he wanted the fame, he was clearly well versed in how the media and the internet work in terms of creating an ongoing focus on himself. He knew that those trying to find him would band together in some way to try and find him. And he also knew that the likely home for such a group of disparate people would be the internet. So his immediate focus, now that he had the ball of online disgust and fury rolling, was to find out who was talking about him and what they were saying. We know that Magnotta had an absolute plethora of fake accounts on various platforms. So he used these to infiltrate any online groups focused on the video, because online comments were like nourishment to his twisted and narcissistic ego. He continually dropped breadcrumbs of clues to his name, face and location, so he could fuel the ongoing interest and discussions. When the hugely popular band of tough guy animal activists of Rescue Inc., with their hundreds of thousands of followers, got involved, I can only imagine he must have come in his pants. But despite further cat cruelty videos, photographs of deceased cats, and more breadcrumb trails of clues, while he felt he was on the right track to where he felt he deserved to be, it still wasn't enough. But before he took the next step, he had another plan to sow seeds of mitigation for his recent and future actions. He contacted an attorney that he thought resembled Michael Douglas. I can't see it myself. I'm thinking more Waldorf and or Statler. But that's by the by. He started feeding this attorney a story of abuse and coercive control at the hands of a man called Manny Lopez. Magnotta presented a story of crippling fear of Manny and indicated that he had to do anything he was told to do or face the consequences. So now, even before he has taken his quest for fame further still, he's showing signs of self-preservation in the event, which to his mind is extremely unlikely, that authorities catch up with him. He's kind of got a story ready made there. In the breadcrumbs he had been dropping up to this point, he indicated that he was a fan of movies, and his mother, after the events in his story had played out, said that Luka loved the film Basic Instinct, which featured a notable murder weapon. And also, earlier in his attempts to shock, he had shared the now infamous 3 Guys 1 Hammer Ukrainian horrific shock video. So one can only imagine that these were two worlds that he was trying to bring together in his coup de grace, if you like, and that coup de grace he would call one lunatic, one ice pick. As I suggested earlier, Magnotta was not particularly interested in sex, but he knew most men were. As he was a man, if he was going to use this method to find a victim, he would need to find a gay or bisexual man if he were to set a honey trap to ensnare that victim. What he needed was to find a man who wanted to meet on the down low without telling all and sundry about the illicit encounter. Only one place to find somebody like that, particularly in the North American continent. To find casual no-strings sexual encounters, Craigslist. And unfortunately, he would find the absolutely perfect quarry. Jun Lin was a 33-year-old Chinese man. He was from Wuhan, but I don't believe he had any link to COVID. But he was just coming to terms with his sexuality. He'd been brought up with the expectation to conform to the normalities of Chinese life. He'd apparently been married and divorced, and his decision to study in Canada was thought to have been driven by a desire to live somewhere away from the family pressures, but also in a location with a more relaxed and liberal view of what were, to his family's views, alternative lifestyles. Somewhere he could explore these different aspects of his sexuality in a more accepting environment. As such, while he had had a previous same-sex relationship, his parents still did not know that he was gay. So any encounters he had needed to be perfunctory and discreet, making Craigslist and sometimes Grindr, I guess, fertile hunting grounds for his immediate needs. That was how a sweet and kind man, just finding his way in the gay lifestyle, crossed paths with a man just using sex to snare a vulnerable person that would have an initial willingness to be tied up. So in May of 2012, Magnotta, true to form, started fueling rumours and stories himself in asking around where they could find the one lunatic, one ice pick video, thereby trying to generate interest ahead of time. And then he dropped the actual video on the 25th of May. And this was a couple of days after Jun Lin had failed to show up for work. As many of you will be aware, this video was horrendous and beyond cruel. A man is shown clutching an ice pick, which later was shown to be a screwdriver with the handle painted silver, and repeatedly stabbing it into a figure tied to the bed. The body is then dismembered, and acts of apparent cannibalism and of necrophilia are also captured. If Magnotta was going for shock value, he most definitely found it. But despite global shock and horror, people still didn't know where Magnotta was. The net began to close in when a male torso was found in a suitcase behind a hotel in Montreal. Searches of trash bags nearby found paperwork and documents relating to someone called Luka Magnotta. So the police mistakenly made the first conclusion that he could possibly be the victim. But these were just more breadcrumbs, because now Magnotta had landed his biggest shock. He wanted to take the credit and be shown around the world. And he wanted to be linked to the murder and the earlier cruelty videos, so he could bask in the attention, firmly believing that he could evade capture and just enjoy the ongoing notoriety. When the police finally linked one lunatic, one ice pick to Junlin's disappearance and to Luka Magnotta's name and likeness. They started to find CCTV evidence of what had happened prior to and immediately after the horrific murder. Junlin was seen arriving at the hotel with Magnotta, with the two seemingly in a friendly relationship. After the murder was thought to have happened, Magnotta was seen making multiple trips to the communal trash cans in the basement, where everyone knew that there were cameras. So why did he not just collect all the trash together and just go once? Well, to my mind, Magnotta made multiple trips because he wanted to be seen. He was even wearing Junlin's t-shirt in this footage. But despite the mounting evidence and the issuing of an arrest warrant, Magnotta was already making his next moves. But he wasn't yet finished with the shock tactics as a result of the murder. On 29th of May, 2 packages were sent to different political headquarters in Ottawa and were found to contain a severed foot and then a severed hand, respectively. In tracking these packages back to the source, Magnotta could be seen on CCTV footage not making any attempt to conceal his identity, waiting patiently at the post office. But no one still knew where he was in real time. But as usual, Magnotta didn't want to fade away, so he continued to leave clues and breadcrumbs so that he would stay in the global consciousness. In the ice pick video, a poster for the film Casablanca was proudly displayed on the wall, and this poster was also found in the trash behind the hotel following the murder. This poster was a gigantic arrow Magnotta was using to point to Paris as his next location. On June the 3rd, Magnotta was spotted in Paris and the chase was on. Interpol had a red notice out for the cruel and malicious bastard, but he was always just that one slight step ahead. He was apparently using the name Kirk Trammell at this point. Now, the Trammell part of the name was presumably a nod to the character of Catherine Trammell, played by Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. The Kirk part could have had a couple of different explanations. It could, on one hand, have been a nod to the other star of Basic Instinct, Michael Douglas's father, Kirk Douglas, or it could have just been that it was one of the original middle names he had when he was plain old Eric Newman. With the whole weight of the European authorities bearing down on him, and global media plastering his image upon society's awareness, it was only a matter of time until he was caught. On the 4th of June, an eagle-eyed owner of an internet cafe in Berlin thought Magnotta may have been using a booth in his internet cafe. So he glanced at what this man was using the internet for. When he saw that this man was looking at the Luka Magnotta mugshot on the Interpol site, he knew he was right, and then immediately alerted the authorities. And then Magnotta was soon arrested, and in a scene that brings me much joy, was marched out of the cafe with no resistance and a glum expression on his face. Now, it took until the 18th of June for Magnotta to be extradited back to Canada. a Canadian Armed Forces plane was needed to transport him because all commercial airlines had refused to carry the arsehole. Can't say I blame them. But while undoubtedly frustrated at his capture and arrival back in Canada, I can't help feeling that these images of him arriving back on Canadian soil do have a degree of smugness and perhaps sense of achievement on Magnotta's smarmy face. At this point, he becomes a whining, self-pitying victim while in custody. How the Canadian authorities fought the temptation to bitch slap him 3 ways from Thursday, I will never know. Of course, at this point, he's also trying to point to Manny Lopez being the puppet master of the whole enterprise. In fact, Magnotta's mother still believes in the Manny story and points to a third hand seen in the kitten killing video. But the weight of forensic and CCTV evidence meant that the vast majority of the human race called bullshit and believes that Manny is just as real as this Manny. The justice system in Canada had its say, and he was sentenced to a mandatory life sentence along with 19 years for other offences which, fuck me, are to be served concurrently. Ooh. He is serving his sentence at the Port Cartier Institution, which is a maximum security facility in Quebec. It was said that he married a fellow inmate called Anthony Jolin on 26th of June 2017 with his mother as a witness. But fuck him. Now I am done with telling the story. I don't want to think any more about him. Even though it's been a marathon story by my standards, I still want to take time to remember Junlin and indeed the innocent animals that became tools in Eric's quest for fame. Very much a case of wrong place at the wrong time. I hope that the friends and family of Junlin are on the road to healing and a level of peace. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. I'm Steve, and I'll see you when I see you.